Family residential. And then 10-118, which is the permit required section, that's at the top of page 3. We have added a paragraph. It's just a sentence. It says, and that's related to this change. No short-term residential rental permit shall be required under this ordinance for the letting of one sleeping room within a single-family residential dwelling. As such use shall remain subject to compliance with all other applicable laws, including requirements contained in the Code of Ordinances, zoning regulations, and any other codes and regulations governing the use. For that use, a special exception is allowed pursuant to the zoning regulations and sections of your ordinances that are already on the books. So I just wanted to point those out to you, and I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Okay, Roberta, who's first?
These people are opposed to the ordinance. Donald DePalma.
There's a button right on top.
Just hold it in until the light goes on. Is it on?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, I'm Donald DePalma. I live at 84 Caroline Road. I've been a summer resident in East Haven at that location since 1970.
Hold on one second. We should just follow this.
Just try to speak closer.
Hi, I'm Donald DePalma, 84 Caroline Road. I've been a summer resident, or was a summer resident.
Oh.
Get off again.
Yeah, it's not you.
Give him the other mic, the batteries go dead.
Guy, can you turn?
Okay, try again. I'm Donald DePalma, you probably all know that by now. I was a summer resident at 84 Caroline Road from 1953 to 2010, and then I've been a year-round resident at that same address since 2010. I've had no financial stake in Airbnbs, short-term rentals. We don't rent. However, you know, after leaving last month's meeting, I went home and I gave it some thought, and I realized that a lot of what I was hearing was based on undocumented experiences of people who oppose the STRs. And those people talk about community, they talk about neighborhood. I really don't think they've demonstrated anything except confrontation and opposition. Don't seem to really have the capacity to work through even the smallest disagreements with their neighbors. So the ordinance is a foregone conclusion at this point, I believe. So these are some of the things that I think should be considered as we go forward. We've been at this for 3 years. Has any hard data supporting the complaints of residents been collected during this extended period of time? I'm not aware of any. The ordinance appears to be based on comments of the most vocal residents who are most passionate and likely leaning toward the extremes. I don't believe that the council has determined the number of short-term rentals in town, where they are, the average length of stay at each of them. I think that data could be pretty easily collected. In March, the meeting, I sensed a sentiment on the part of multiple council members to get it done after having battled with it for 3 years. That's not a reason to make a decision. I also heard a sentiment from multiple members saying we should make both sides happy. First of all, that's not your job. And secondly, it's probably not ever going to happen. Attorney Capola mentioned that there's an ordinance that if the ordinance is passed, there would be a third party brought in to track complaints, associate them with short-term rental properties. If that service is available, why would it not be used to collect that critical data before enacting an ordinance. The veracity of various complaints can be made, you know, we don't know how often these have been done. We don't have any police data as to how many times they've been called.
You have 30 seconds.
Okay. In summary, I'd like to see the council make the decision based on real experiences with hard data that supports their decision. It shouldn't be decided based on heated and emotional input from either side, and certainly not from a very small segment of our population. Thank you.
Who's next, Bert?
Peter Mahakian.
Evening, my name is Peter Mahakian. I've been a resident of East Haven for 71 years. I live at 14 James Street here in East Haven. I see things in this ordinance that are both positive, that I like, and some other things that I'm not happy with. I did some research after the last meeting, and I noticed that there were 3 words that kept coming up in the Google search regarding Airbnb. And I noticed that there were some folks here in the last meeting that were very proud of themselves that they registered or went through Airbnb to establish a orderly marketplace. And it was commendable. I agree with that. Good for you. As it turns out, this is about changing names of things. And when you change the names or the terms, you change the game. In this case, the 3 words were host, guest, and home. In the ordinance, it seems that these 3 critical words that might help everyone in the room come to an agreement. These 3 words mean things. Host has been changed to owner, and guest has been changed to assemblies of people or renter, and home has been changed to property. No wonder why you've been here for 3.5 years not coming to an agreement about things. Essential to the host-guest relationship is that when the guest steps over the threshold, I think you know where I'm going. When the guest steps over the threshold, the first thing that happens is that the guest is on his or her best behavior.
You have 30 seconds, sir.
As it turns out, when the host is in the home, opening their home to a guest, they are the natural, common sense regulator of the situation. I doubt that anybody is going to misbehave. I really do.
Sir, that's your 3 minutes. If you want to finish up your thought, you're more than welcome.
Well, it was an analogy, and I'll let that go for if there is a next time.
Thank you.
But you get the point. Common sense would prevail. No need for the police, not even a need for 10 pages of ordinance, because common decency that those of us who are old enough grew up with would never create a disturbance, never cast a piece of litter on somebody else's lawn,
Sir,
etc.
sir, thank you so much. Thank you. I wish everybody felt like you.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you. Who's next, Bert?
Good evening, everybody.
Just state your name and address so we can start the clock.
My name is Blake Buchanan, 183 Morgan Avenue. I'm an Iraq War veteran. I'm an engineer. I'm a husband, father of 2 children. I'm a good neighbor. It's my first time attending this meeting, as the decision that this board makes will directly impact my family as a property owner and host. I just want to make some points to the benefits that I feel short-term rentals contribute to a neighborhood. There's economic benefits, boost to local economy. Short-term rentals bring travelers into the neighborhood, who in turn support local businesses, restaurants, coffee shops, various attractions, which I think is important in this neighborhood. And I think it will benefit everybody. It'll bring property value stability, well-maintained properties. My property is well-maintained. I think that's a must, as any responsible host on a short-term rental platform will tell you. Being a good host means being a good neighbor and answering any of the sort of complaints that come against you, that may come against you. There's also processes in place to ensure that anybody who is upset or has been treated unfairly by people staying in the neighborhood as guests, there is recourse there. So there's processes in place. I suggest we discuss these with neighbors and owners, and if there's an issue, we can talk about it and get that fixed. Community exposure, cultural exchange. Short-term rentals attract guests from various backgrounds, fostering cultural exchange and showing the neighborhood's charm to a global audience, which I will tell you, my property is rented to many people from around the world, many of them coming to Yale, many of them coming to the VA hospital, and many of them just curious about our neck of the woods. Neighborhood revitalization, preventing vacancy. Short-term rentals reduce vacant or unused properties, which not only can be a huge eyesore, they can attract people living in those areas that are not following the rules that guests from a properly managed short-term property would be doing. That also benefits safety for the neighborhood and people in it. More eyes can often help report any sort of things that we as neighbors don't agree is something we want.
You have 30 seconds.
I'm also concerned about overregulation. The right amount of regulation is important, but let's have the discussion of not impacting people's financial positions and family positions, or on the basis of this is something I don't want in my backyard or not in my backyard. The first speaker who spoke, I didn't catch his name, but I thought he made a fantastic point. As an engineer, I'm data-driven. What is the data that says short-term rentals is bad for a neighborhood? I think it's very much the opposite.
That was your 3 minutes. If you want to just finish up your last thought, that'd be fine.
I'm complete. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your service. Round of applause. Thank you so much.
Dean Kim?
Hi, I'm Gene Kim of the 46 Caroline Road. Thanks for generously serving the town and giving us the opportunity to express our views on the very important topic of short-term rentals. We appreciate all your consideration and willingness to hear both sides of this process has been ongoing for months. Our Alliance of Short-Term Property Owners have spent hours reviewing the drafts and considered the implications to the town and neighbors while preserving our freedom as tax-paying property owners of East Haven. We understood the town's perspective and were willing to compromise on many of our initial terms and only requested modifications to the items most important to us, namely the ability of non-primary residents to use their properties as short-term rentals. We feel that limiting STRs to primary residents does not impact the health, safety, or welfare of town residents, as we are all non-corporate owners personally renting and managing our properties when we cannot use the property. In fact, leaving our properties empty for extended periods of time leaves our neighborhood open to vandalism and theft, which has been increasing over the years. Having screened desks in our house prevents our neighborhoods from becoming targets. The other issue most important to us personally is the one rental every 7 days. We agree that group guests every 1 or 2 days enables a scenario of disruptive parties or gatherings, but 2 3-night stays within 7 days wouldn't feel any different than a single 6-night stay within the neighborhood, as most of our guests are just looking for a low-key, relaxing stay by the water. Thank you for clarifying the minimum age of renters, defining what constitutes a room, and lowering the permit renewal fee. Our alliance truly wants to cooperate with the town and abide by the ordinance once it gets approved. Personally, for our property, we have only rented families and children. We filter our renters to eliminate gatherings of non-familial people and have received only stellar feedback from our guests. We take great pride in our property and love spending time in East Haven as much as we can. We understand there are bad actors who should not be given the privilege to rent their homes, but they are a rarity and should be treated as such. The majority of us strive to be good neighbors and owners, even though we are not primary residents of town. And we hope the new ordinance doesn't overly restrict owners that have not caused any issues in town. Perhaps the inaction of a less stringent ordinance to test the waters and then adding to it if issues arise could be a fair balance. This way, the adding to the ordinance would be justified by specific citable issues.
You have 30 seconds.
I haven't heard of any issues directly attributable to STRs that the town has had to deal with, other than negative sentiment of neighbors. We're disappointed at the animosity this issue has created on our street, and hope the new ordinance will officially allow renters and non-renters to coexist peacefully. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Brittany Stolzberg.
Brittany Stolzberg, 1 Palmetto Trail. Thank you, council members, for the opportunity to speak, as well as for your hard work on this issue. Many people have said East Haven should follow suit of other shoreline towns that have restricted Airbnbs. First, not all of these restrictions include a primary residence clause. It's true that a handful have even stricter requirements, like owner-occupied, but the majority of municipalities in Connecticut have no restrictions on STRs at all. And some of the first towns to have passed restrictions are considering rolling them back because of the negative effects they've had on their local economies. This issue is new, it's only about 5 years old, and there's really not a clear answer yet for how to best regulate STRs. But even beyond these facts, East Haven, as far as I know the town, has never been a blind follower of other shoreline towns. In fact, the independent, autonomous spirit of the town is what made me initially fall in love with it 10 years ago. I know there's a lot of pressure for the council to get something done on this issue before the summer. I urge you to take a more conservative approach, passing some of the clauses related to parking, rental caps, and of course the registration and permitting process. If more restrictions than that are needed, I hope we can convene actual meetings where both sides can communicate with each other, not just through these hearings. There has to be a better way for neighbors to work together than what we've done so far. I think we've really missed the mark in our community, communicating as neighbors and as stakeholders together. And I really think we can do better than we have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Leonardo Gugliotti.
Hello, Leonardo Gugliotti, 53 Caroline Road. I purchased my house in Caroline Road 10 years ago, and 5 years ago I was able to purchase the one across the street with the intention of keeping it for my grandkids for the future, not yet. And I was planning on the income generating by the short-term rentals to be able to afford it. Since the town had no guidelines at the time, so I figured there was no problem, we can start doing that. And I was able to budget accordingly. Again, I want this to be with my family for a long time. I love East Haven. I live across the street the whole summer. The families that come into the property are always a parents and 2 kids. That's what we have. They come in, enjoy the beach, they relax, they don't cause any problems. Everybody goes to bed early, there's no problem. The only time you hear noises are my neighbors that are having a good time, they are full-time tenants there. They're not the short-term renters. I'm there, I maintain the property all the time. I cut the grass, I clean the beach, I rake the shells, I do all that stuff. And you can ask people in that position if it's true or not, because they see me doing it. I love East Haven. There may be some bad actors maybe in short-term rental properties, but you cannot blame the whole group of us that are law-abiding and we love the town. So if you have to enforce the laws that we have in the books already, we are okay with some kind of guidelines. My biggest concern is the primary residence requirement, because it's not right. I cannot live here year-round. My house is not year-round, it's always seasonal, but I want to be able to do what I'm doing. Rent it to people that are nice people, that cause no problems. And in about 5 years, when my daughters get married, I give them the house and I'll be all set. But I love the neighborhood, and you cannot have, to put a new law now, people that have their houses, people thinking in advance of the budgeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thomas Caposalatro.
Tom Caposalatro, 39 Caroline Road. I wanted to first state that my family has owned our dwelling for over 60 years. It's a summer cottage, and for the last 3 years, we endeavored into Airbnb just to offset some of our tax and expenses. This proposed ordinance would not allow us to offset our taxes and expenses, being that this is a summer home and not my primary residence. There have been accusations that the short-term renters have been a problem. If that were true, then why haven't there been any police reports on record within our neighborhood? I'm speaking for our neighborhood. Airbnb screens our potential renters and have a rating system of 1 to 5 scale. We have not accepted any renters below a 5 rating. We are also rated as hosts by Airbnb and diligently maintained a 5-star rating. We maintain all our insurances. That was a question at one point in one of the meetings, as well as renter's insurance, which is required by the Airbnb process. Short-term rentals bring in commerce to the area that would not have been introduced otherwise, and also services such as cleaning, landscaping, retail, and restaurants. So we're bringing in other people that wouldn't normally come to the East Haven area. I don't understand why a municipality would want to discourage enhancement and exposure to their community so that other people, for graduations and weddings and things like that, can be exposed to what we all enjoy in East Haven. If there was such a problem, I would imagine that police services would have been notified and reports would have been generated. Within our neighborhood, there have been no instances or problems to warrant an ordinance change and restrictive regulations as far as primary residence requirements. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jay Klein.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jay Klein. I'm a zoning attorney at Carmody, Torrance, Sandak, and Hennessy, working with members of the East Haven Short-Term Rental Alliance. Thank you all for your time serving on this commission and taking part in these hearings. And my name is on the opposed sheet, but I have to tell you, this ordinance that's before you has a lot of strong and effective tools built into it. Tools that, quite frankly, make the primary residence requirement unnecessary moving forward. I've looked at the short-term rental regulations across Connecticut, across the country for almost 10 years now, and I would say one of the best tools that you can put in your regulatory toolkit is having an owner-agent requirement or a property manager requirement, effectively, which is what you have in your regulation. That ensures that there's a phone number to call, and a person who can help address issues as they arise at the moment they arise. The regulations that you have concerning tenant turnover in the ordinance already. I mean, that's really one of the biggest concerns that folks opposed to short-term rentals mention. That's another very strong tool that makes the primary residency requirement unnecessary. I'd say if you want to put a belt on top of those suspenders, maybe require that the neighbor notice that's sent to folks as part of the permitting process include the contact information for the owner agent, so that if there's an issue at 10:30 on a Saturday night, neighbor, rather than waiting for Monday to call town hall, can call someone at the moment something is occurring, so that any issue can be addressed immediately rather than waiting for time. I think another tool that you could consider is if there are a certain number of proven violations, if there's a repeat offender, don't allow that person to reapply for a permit in the future. Take away the right to ever go for it again. I think another important thing to know about the primary residency requirement is that appellate court has found to discriminate in that way, where you give a property owner, a town resident, a favor over a non-town resident. That's found to be illegal, and I don't think the commission or the council, wants to pass something that would perhaps be susceptible to being overturned by the court. But perhaps the biggest reason why I'm against the primary residency requirement is the irreversible adverse impact that it will have on some of the folks who I'm representing before you this evening. I've got to know a number of the folks that I'm sure you've heard from already, really terrific people who are invested personally and financially invested in the future of this town.
You have 30 seconds.
You may have met the Ridnours on Stevens Street, the Marconis on Ellis Street, both couples who cannot live in East Haven for 183 days. Their jobs prohibit them from doing so, but they are good residents, they are good neighbors, they are good taxpayers, and they are committed to the future of this town. They want to retire in this town, but this primary residency requirement will prohibit them from doing so because they depend on the income derived from short-term rentals. There's no going back for some folks if you make a decision that ruptures their family financially. I think we've all been in those situations. But you don't have to do that. You do not have to pass an ordinance with a primary residency requirement. You have the tools in your toolkit to make sure that short-term rentals are operated in a healthy, safe, and way that respects the surrounding neighborhood without putting people's financial futures in significant jeopardy. That's in your hands. And just before I wrap up, I do want to thank your attorneys, Lizzie, and for meeting with us earlier this week and discussing this matter. So thank you all for your time.
Bruce Ridenour?
Good evening. Bruce Ridenour, 13 Stevens Street. Lots been said about the primary residence. I don't think I can have anything to add to that. I just want to let you know that our neighbors have our phone numbers, and when there's a problem, they do call us. And I'm glad they do, so if there's a problem, I'm going to take care of it in the moment. I don't want to wait for a police report, but they're welcome to call the police too. I want to address the size of the bedrooms. I pay taxes on a 3-bedroom home. Our home is on a field card as a 3-bedroom home. I'm not kidding you. Our bedrooms fall this much short of the way that's written. We have one bedroom that's 66 square feet, I believe. Every one of them failed this thing. That harms us quite a bit. I'd kind of like to know what the building code is for a bedroom in a normal dwelling, whether that's a rental or a house being built, and how does that compare to what you've written into this ordinance? The notify the neighbors, I kind of wonder what that's for. I mean, we are not pedophiles and we are not criminals. We're landlords. And, you know, let's be real, a host is a landlord. We are not slumlords. And we, by the nature of the short-term rental websites, we can't be slumlords. We would never succeed. The fee still to me is a bit excessive. We own a rental property in Terryville, and our apartments have to be inspected every time a new tenant moves in. That fee so far has been $35 for each inspection. So I don't know how that works out with your accounting, but I kind of wonder where that money is going to. This whole ordinance really kind of puts my retirement at risk, and that's very concerning to me. It's still, as I had said before, a bit of a de facto ban on the short-term rentals. So I'll cut it short. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, Sheila Marcotte, 23 Ellis Road. This is not my primary residence. I'm from New York. I live in the town of Eastchester in the village of Tuckahoe. I want to thank you for taking the time to consider the many important aspects of this ordinance. And I don't believe that anyone in this room disagrees with the concept of regulating the STRs. We're all in favor of it. As I stated at the last meeting, our property has been nuisance-free. And quite frankly, we've spent pretty much more time at our property here than we have maintaining our own home in New York. We've done so much work to it. It always looks beautiful and welcoming to our guests. We have never viewed our property as a get-rich-quick scheme, but more of a place that we plan on retiring in about 3 years. And we literally spend as much time as we can in this house. We can't wait for our renters to come, but we can't wait for them to leave because we love being here, especially on the weekends. We love this community and we love our neighbors. And by the way, all of our neighbors have our phone numbers. And I've never gotten a call, I've never gotten a complaint. We get along great, our renters have been wonderful. And we only rent to families, minimum age 35, 6 people max. I believe that the objective of maintaining the quality of life can be achieved through a number of different approaches, such as stepping up enforcement, proposing fair and common sense regulations, and even a simple yet effective measure that other municipalities have successfully done as the 3 strikes and you're out model, and that's something that New York City does. We recently invested a large sum of money to elevate our house so we could be at the FEMA recommended height. Because of my job, and I work in government like you, I am required to live in the county of Westchester. I would have loved to have made this my primary residence. We would have been eligible for the FEMA loan. We would have been able to raise our house and not invested the money that we just did. But because I can't be a primary resident, we took out a loan and we figured in the very few rentals that we do was going to help offset the costs. Taking that out and not having us eligible really hurts us financially. And my house isn't even finished yet. They just put the stairs on last week. Again, I thank you for your time. I hope that you will not support this ordinance as written, and possibly even take a bit longer, and I commend you. It seems like this has been a very long road for you. I know that's a lot of work. But maybe take a little bit longer just to get it right in an effort to strike a balance and bring all stakeholders to the table. I think it can be done. I think you can all achieve what you want to achieve. You're not going to make everybody happy, but I think you can come up with a really good common sense ordinance. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Heather, Shanita?
Hi, Heather Chumita, 58 Caroline Road. I know you guys have heard from me a lot. Probably are sick of hearing from me. So I'm just going to try to make it quick. I agree with everyone else on the primary residence clause. Then as far as the third-party system to collect data, is there any way that we can vet if these calls are actual legitimate or if it's just a neighbor trying to report somebody that is not necessarily having a nuisance issue? Like Leo, I have two houses. The first one I bought 20 years ago, and then one of my neighbors was selling their house, and I bought it because I have 3 children who grew up on that beach and want to be there forever. I rent the other one because they're not old enough to live in it at this time. The only neighbors that cause problems are probably Don and Jane with their loud parties, but I'm usually invited, so that's fine. And I know that you guys are kind of making your decision based on 2 groups and their emotions and their feelings, and you don't have a lot of facts because there isn't anything from police reports and such. I invite all of you to come to my house any day or night in the summer, on the weekend, spend the entire day there into the night and see what's going on. You have a bird's eye view of the entire beach from my deck. There is nothing going on. It is so quiet. The only thing that's happening are some kids playing in the water. Maybe once in a while, the neighborhood kids are having a bonfire. And that's about it. There's no wild parties. There's nothing crazy happening. So I think that you have a tough job because you're basing this off of what you're hearing, but I think that we need some facts, just like Don said, before we make an actual decision. Thank you, guys.
Jay Brown?
Jay Brown, 92 Caroline Road. I think that you guys have been working hard at getting this, trying to get this straightened out. The big problem I see is that the resources that are available for the people that have been complaining haven't been used. If there are no police reports, there aren't any, why are we getting 9 pages of legislation to deal with a bad neighbor? It seems a little bit out of control to me. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Ray Rosamondo?
Hi, I'm Ray Rosamondo, 212 Morgan Avenue. Good to see you all again. You asked to confine remarks to proposed changes. I will try, but it's really the totality of what you're trying to do in this document that's so alarming. You know, we've heard some of the changes that come up with primary residence clause. It's still not where it needs to be. I'm a primary resident currently, but I might not be in the future, but I still spend a lot of time there, and certainly spend a lot of money in Moody's hardware, keeping the place up to standards and make it look good, as well as I spend a lot of money with local workers and cleaners, all stays in the community, so I hope you'll be able to do that. You have a room size that you tinkered on the edges. I think you added 5 square feet or something. We are not conforming local houses in the beach community, right? These aren't the ones that were created under building codes later on. So I know my house probably won't fit into this, and I have 2 beautiful bedrooms, and I have a rating that's 5-star also. People love coming to that place. The rental days per week, swinging like a pendulum. I get the sense that you all aren't sure what to do on that, so you shouldn't do anything until you are sure. You know, we can agree to maybe not have one-night rentals, but some people have rental averages of 2 days a week, 2 to 3 days a week, because people are coming in to go to Yale or visit family, maybe a long weekend. So it just doesn't work the way you proposed it, and you keep changing because it doesn't work. So recognize that. So I just want to say there's been no really substantive changes to the totality of this bill. You take it out around the edges. I don't feel like we've been heard in terms of understanding how our Airbnb or Vrbo market works and what could work for us to make everyone sort of on the same page in terms of doing something that would solve the situation for you as well as work for everyone involved. Even the statement of purpose that you have in this is pejorative against short-term rentals. It doesn't look at the economic benefits. It should be worded in a way that frames this conversation is how do we make this work for everyone? Lastly, I just want to say, it all comes off as solutions in search of a problem. You loaded a bunch of solutions in. I don't know where these came from. What is the problem you're trying to solve? And then narrowly write what you're doing to solve that problem. Well, anyway, You need to get this right. I don't think it is right yet. You've got people here who are going to be regulated and they're willing to work with you to do that. So let's get it right. If this ordinance is voted on tonight, I really urge you to reject it because it's just not right yet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Charles Fritz.
Thank you. Charles Fritch, One Palmetto Trail. First, thank you all for continuing to work on this. I appreciate everyone's hard work and attention to this issue. However, as written, this ordinance, especially the primary residence requirement, does not fulfill its stated purpose of ensuring that STRs do not adversely impact the health, safety, and or welfare of renters and neighboring residents. As written, with this primary residence requirement in place, it's completely legal for a primary resident to go anywhere, let's say Australia or Japan. We all know it's likely Florida, for 182 days and rent their home. Yes, it says they're supposed to have a local contact to stand in their place, but that person does not have to be a professional, and it could just be their uncle or cousin who is also similarly unavailable. It does not, why don't we have a professional agent requirement? So in week one, they've seen people, they can rent their home for a 100-person party. After that, the guy who's in Australia, maybe he's off to Japan now, he can rent their house to a bunch of college kids who are drinking all night. Week three, the same thing. Like, this is allowed with these, by allowing, I don't remember the exact term that you use, but by allowing events to take place, this is still taking place. The primary resident is a perfect example of a bad actor. This is one who is well within their rights, but is under the ordinance. How does that protect the health, safety, and welfare of people in our town? Primary residents do not guarantee good behavior. I'm especially aware of this as my primary resident long-term rental neighbors are constantly getting the cops called on them to address their screaming and public drug use at all hours of the night. But these are primary residents. And yet nothing can be done about that because, again, they're primary residents. Why aren't they getting regulated? Instead, let's focus on what is clearly the intent of this ordinance, to get rid of bad actors and actually make our neighborhoods safer. You have already started this by banning corporate ownership, capping the annual number of days the property may be rented, and limiting a rental to once per 7 days. But you can do better. Instead of giving into the fear-mongering of the outsider, focus on stopping bad actors. There's been a proposal of 3 strikes or out policy. That would get rid of bad actors. You can ban one-night rentals. That would also get rid of bad actors. But please focus on that purpose and ask yourself how kicking out people who have been here for 70 years, like the Ferrantes, because they are not primary residents, or me and my family who live 14 miles away, and raise our children in this home, and we are in Easton every week, but we are not primary residents. Will getting rid of us achieve your goal? We are invested in this community and hope to keep crafting to actually achieve the ordinance's stated purpose.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you.
The following people are in favor of the ordinance. Jack Taboni.
Good evening, council members, Judge, Buzzard. Thank you for your time in putting this together.
Just state your address.
My name is Jack Taboni. I live at 270 Cozy Tavern. I lived at 270 for the past 44 years with my wife, Tam. There are 9 SDRs surrounding my home. They range from 50 feet to 290 feet from my front door. We live in the chaos of SDRs in our neighborhood. And at any given time, there are transients coming and going several times a week. There's nowhere to park, strangers on our property, nowhere to sit on the beach and parties day and night in the neighborhood, which was a great neighborhood till SDRs came to town. Also, enormous amounts of trash left behind. Since we have been at this table for the past 4 years, and the legal team has spent countless hours and money writing an ordinance that supposedly protects these Haven residents, I feel the council needs to ratify the original ordinance that was presented on February 25th. You need to consider the safety and well-being of the residents you all represent. If you are not going to protect the taxpayer residents and give non-residential landowners to run the town, we will lose our neighborhood to business owners. Please protect taxpaying residents and not illegal businesses. If all these STR owners love this town so much, why did they all move away and rent their homes for STRs? There's the original STR that was put together, the ordinance by Jennifer. I want to put it in as record.
Thank you, Jack. Although I appreciate everyone's enthusiasm, if we could just kind of keep the clapping down, it slows things down, and we have a lot of people that need to speak, so I appreciate that.
Gary Brochu?
For the record, I have to note I'm a little upset to cut out the applause before I got to speak, so I'll try to proceed anyways. Gary Brochu, 72 Cozy Beach Avenue. First of all, good evening to members of the Town Council. I appreciate your efforts, and also good evening to everyone who took the time to attend. As been noted, your task before you, as written in your ordinance, is that the regulation of short-term rentals is necessary, your words, not mine, to ensure that rentals do not adversely impact the health, safety, and welfare of renters and of neighboring residents. Now, I will say, listening here, it came to a surprise to me that I'm a fearmonger and have animosity, and that if any of us tell stories or relate circumstances of our properties being impinged on by other short-term rentals, that somehow that's not factual. And it is. I'm not here to dispute anyone who's come up and said they rent and they take care of their place. I'm assuming that's the truth. Frankly, I would appreciate that the same was accorded to those people who disagree. In terms of your revised residence, I applaud the fact that primary residence is in there still. That is a keystone. Much of the ordinance, as you know, has been revised downward or lessened or eased up. And so the fact that you still have that kind of responsibility and accountability is important. I do have some concerns with some of the changes or some of the things that are still in there. The fact that events are allowed and the fact that there's no longer a one-week rental, but any period of time, frankly, as long as it's only once during a week, frankly, is going to encourage events and more events. I can't speak to other streets, but there is no way there is parking anywhere on Cozy Beach Avenue that's legal that would accommodate an event. And frankly, our neighboring property, which will rent as many as 18 people for a 3-bedroom, and follow up with another 18 or 16 people, I don't know in terms of enforcement. So do I call the police when they're parking in our parking lot? Because they're going to tell us that's private. We try to work with the neighbor, but frankly, we've been told there's no regulations, there's no guidelines. The fact is, residents have made it clear that in some circumstances, not all, but in some circumstances, the ability to enjoy their property has been compromised, often intolerably. I'm going to presume, as a good neighbor, that they're telling the truth. I know I am.
You have 30 seconds.
Thank you. And this is a problem that cannot be resolved by individual enforcement. This is only a job that can be resolved by the council, putting together guidelines that instruct all of us of how we are to live in our community. I appreciate it's a difficult decision, but frankly, at this point, inaction is action. Inaction is a vote to allow a situation that people have acknowledged is intolerable to continue. I encourage you to look at this seriously. I encourage you to put common sense guidelines that protect our neighborhoods and treat all of us fairly. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
No.
Dominic Fuentes?
Hi, good evening. My name is Dominic Francis. I'm here on behalf of my father, who lives at 28 Jamaica Court. His name is Paul Francis. He's usually at these meetings. He's not here this evening. Full disclosure, my address is 36 LU Street in Hamden, and that's my primary residence. Unregulated short-term rental properties have significantly damage the residential areas of East Haven. The shoreline area zoned as R1 and R3 are not zoned to include commercial motels. Let's not kid ourselves. Short-term rentals are unregulated, money-making commercial properties that are disturbing the safety, health, and welfare of our family residential neighborhoods. I've spoken to many of you and sent numerous emails containing details of the dangerous incidents I've experienced. So you should be well aware of how STR have damaged the safety, health, and welfare of East Haven neighborhoods. East Haven has become a favorite town of STR investors. There are websites that highlight East Haven to investors to buy up homes because of location, shoreline, and lack of regulations. I believe that you've received a map of Connecticut shoreline that shows that many of the surrounding towns have STR regulations that prohibit STR or have regulations that include primary residence and minimum 7-day rentals. In East Haven, investors are buying up homes, reducing housing inventories, and preventing families from buying a home. After 3 years of ordinance drafting, council meetings, and public hearings, time is now to approve STR ordinance that will protect East Haven residents and not investors. An ordinance that includes registration of STR properties, annual inspections, and primary residence, and minimum 7-day rental provisions is needed. And if I may speak on my own behalf, I lived at 28 Jamaica Court for about 8 months with my family, my small family, my wife and 2 children with my parents, while we were looking for any residence, because as we know, the housing market is very difficult. So they have a 3-bedroom home. It was 6 people, and it was very tight. The house next to them is a short-term rental on Airbnb. I just looked it up this afternoon. It's $600 a night. They allow 10 people to stay there per night. We've seen the trash outside afterwards. We've seen up to 4 cars parked on a very small street. If you've ever been on Jamaica Court, it's a very small private street. So it is very disruptive. I've experienced that.
You have 30 seconds.
And my father in his letter talks about investors, but the true investors in this town are the residents that live here. They're the ones that go to these businesses, the pizzerias, send their kids to school here, coach Little League. Those are the true investors. Okay, those are the people that are putting back into the town, and I hope you vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cindy Spirato?
Hi guys, Cindy Spirato, 42 Caroline Road. Just quickly, a little bit about the threat of lawsuits. Look, anyone can threaten to sue. The real question is, can we protect our residents, defend the ordinance, and win the lawsuit? So they hired a lawyer. For all you UConn women's basketball fans, as Gino says, we have Paige, they don't. Well, we have Attorney Coppola, and they don't. Listen to her. Listen to her and trust her. She crafted a great ordinance based on your input. A week ago Monday, at the request of Senator Cohen, I testified on short-term rentals on Capitol Hill because of all the research I've done. What I saw was a real change from a couple of years ago. In speaking with the legislators, their message was clear. They are seeing the damage that short-term rentals are doing to their communities and their housing stock. And they want regulations and accountability. I believe the tides are changing in support of residents, finally. Representative Rochelle from Ansonia and Derby, and Representative Baumgardner from Groton and Mystic, and Representative Fazzino from Cheshire and Berlin all gave firsthand testimony on how important regulations are becoming and how even one bad, really bad, STR can strain your police and fire resources. Representative Zullo sits on this committee, but sadly he was not there. I offered you all this book to read. It was written by an independent researcher, not some billion-dollar company, after seeing what had become of his town due to short-term rentals. While his research initially focused on West Coast communities, it completely parallels what's happening here on the East Coast and right here in East Haven. And what I heard when I was on Capitol Hill. The time for change is now. The legislators on Capitol Hill are ready for it. I believe, given the narrowness of the decision of Pine Orchard, the courts are as well.
You cannot legislate simply to avoid lawsuits. You need to put forth well-written ordinances that protect our residents and have a good attorney to protect our town. I believe you have all of that right here. Please remember, no one, and not this ordinance, is stopping anyone from renting their home. They can rent for long-term, they can rent for monthly, they can rent academic rentals. There are hundreds of ways that they can still make money off their homes. They just can't turn them into hotels. I also have, I'm going to pass these out
Like
to
20 seconds.
some of the towns that have primary residents, and the fact that as of last week, I checked all the dockets, they have no pending lawsuits on them. Thank you.
Just give it to Roberta, she'll pass it on to us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Amy Gagliardi?
Hello, my name is Amy Gagliardi. I'm at 10 Palmetto Trail. I just wanted to start by thanking the town council for working very hard on this issue for the past 3 years. We all know that the council is not up here for the money. You got involved with the town council because you wanted to serve the community. The town council is very much aware of the concerns on both sides, so there's no need to go over all of that. We all want Chuck and Brittany to be able to make memories with their family, and no one's trying to take away Christine or Colin's retirement home. No one's deliberately trying to prevent me from enjoying my home in peace. So let's put all those things on hold for a minute, and let's concentrate on the town of East Haven. Right now, we have no safeguards to protect our town like other shoreline towns have. The primary resident clause is important. When someone is looking for an investment property, they look at return on investment and they look at ordinances and regulations. And as it currently stands, there is a green light in East Haven. They look at the airport, with the Avelo Airlines and the addition of Breeze Airlines, and the commuter traffic is greatly increased, also making our town more attractive. If a lot of us could have our way, and we know that we can't, we would put a hard stop, red light on these short-term rentals. The current ordinance has been modified down multiple times in favor of short-term rentals. To be fair with both sides, I urge the council to make a compromise and give the town of East Haven a yellow light. Not a green light and not a red light, a yellow light. And that will be done by passing this ordinance, which includes primary residents. In closing, I will leave you with this. To paraphrase the words of our 9th Secretary of State, Henry Clay, he said, "A sign of a good compromise is where everyone is disappointed." Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Arnold Sussman?
Good evening, I'm Arnold Sussman. I live on 342 Cozy Beach Avenue. I want to wish everyone here a happy April Fool's Day. Seriously, I truly appreciate the time spent by the town council and attorneys. I previously emailed you my concerns after the last town council public hearing. To avoid redundancy, I will limit my comments today. Every hearing, the subject is brought up about insurance liability. On the shoreline, the short-term rental is an accident waiting to happen. For example, near my house, there is a dangerous rock jetty. Again, I ask, who will be liable? The owner, the neighbor, or even worse, the town? For now, this issue is mostly about the shoreline. The potential pending airport expansion will turn this into a town-wide matter. With only one hotel in East Haven, any house within 5 miles of the airport could become a short-term rental. The main issue has to be primary residence. I have some respect for the residents who own rental property. However, a significant amount of the short-term rental owners are taxpayer investors but not residents or voters. The town council is a policy-making and legislative body. It is responsible for enacting laws and policies, managing municipal affairs, and representing the community's interest. I've yet to understand how the quality of life for the citizens of East Haven has improved by short-term rentals. Short-term rental property needs to have regulations. If the primary residence clause is removed, then all of the other revisions to the draft need to be too. I strongly urge you to pass this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anna Cobb?
I can be incredibly verbose, so I'm going to read through this very quickly. How many minutes do I have? Three
Just state your
minutes.
name and address for the record.
Yes, thank you. So good evening and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Anna Cott and I'm a resident of East Haven at 133 Boxing Hill Road. As stated in my comments emailed to the Town Council on March 25th, I'm strongly opposed to short-term rentals. As evidence, when I first brought this matter to the attention of then zoning enforcement officer Chris Soto in April of 2016, when an unpermitted guest of a neighbor attempted to gain entry to my parents' property on Southdale Street. A police report was filed, and I'd be happy to provide receipts of multiple meetings with zoning that ultimately culminated in no regulation and a civil suit between my parents and their now former neighbor. That said, I understand compromise is sometimes necessary, and I want to sincerely thank the council, town staff, and attorneys. You've clearly done the hard work, and what you've built here is a solid foundation for a model ordinance that other shoreline communities will likely look to. In addition to the data that I provided supporting the primary residence requirements, I do think that with some small refinements, it can do even better, not changing the direction, but really strengthening what we have here already, either for consideration today or future amendments. The ordinance ties short-term rentals to a person's primary residence. That's smart policy, but to make it work in practice, I ask that you add two sentences. One being an owner may only have one primary residence under the primary residence definition, and the other being only one short-term rental permit shall be issued per individual household or legal entity town-wide to the permit required section. This makes it unambiguous that a person cannot legally operate more than one short-term rental under the primary residence allowance, closing the door to those attempting to juggle several properties through loopholes like the formation of LLCs, putting different properties in the names of family members, such as a spouse. Okay, almost there. The other one is that short-term rental overuse tends to cluster, as is evidenced with many residents here from the beach neighborhood. Based on the 2020 census data, East Haven has about 11,282 households across 8 voting districts. That's about 1,400 per district. The council can certainly consider a cap per district that would allow short-term rentals equating to about 28 per district or 224 town-wide. Of course, that can be scaled proportionally as needed. Specifically in the beach district, where it's designated permit parking only, there are about 500 homes. I would ask the council to consider a more stringent cap for that area. If you were to set a cap of 1% in that particular district, there would be a limit of 5 short-term rentals, which I think strikes a fair balance between individual rights and residential community preservation.
20 seconds.
These refinements are simple, practical, and fact-based. The one permit rule, regardless of the number of properties held, closes a real loophole. The district-based cap prevents any one neighborhood from being overwhelmed. These are similar to those being considered by East Lyme Ad Hoc Short-Term Rental Committee in February of 2025, as well as other towns across the country, not necessarily in Connecticut, that have been upheld by the federal courts. Thank you again for your time, your service, and your willingness to get this right for the future of this.
Thank you so much. All right, so that concludes the public comment portion of the public hearing. Let's go back to the attorney if you want to, I'm sure there's some things that you want to follow up with, so here you go.
I think one of the issues that we have is that obviously there have been, preceding March 11th, is that there were various iterations of this, and things have changed. I'm just going to note just some observations. We've not talked a lot about the changes to events and gatherings. I think that that's worth having some discussion about. The distinction obviously being made that gatherings would be of the people that are the renters and occupants of the short-term rental versus events. You'd have outside people coming in. There were some conduct provisions that were added. You received some testimony, a little bit of testimony about this tonight, but I think, it bears taking a look at that. Obviously, and I'm just going to kind of go page by page, but, the primary residence issue continues to be a significant issue. I think that Attorney Buzzy and I should disclose, and though Attorney Klein did not mention to it, or speak to it rather, he and Attorney Hurst did send us a U.S. Court of Appeals case to take a look at with regard to an allegation of violation of Commerce Clause with regard to the primary residence requirement. I do want to mention that to you. I think he just didn't get to it, being limited in time. But that is something that certainly he has raised the issue. We haven't, spoken extensively about the conflicts in some of the case law that is out there. If that's something that you'd like us to address in more detail, we certainly can do that. I want to give them the opportunity as well. We did meet with them to talk about some of, and I think some of the suggestions that they make in the correspondence that they did submit are fine suggestions. But this primary residence issue continues to be so much of the focus, right, that people are indicating, and you heard the comments from Attorney Klein about articulating their arguments, their claims of how his clients are going to be hurt by the adoption of the ordinance with that requirement. So I just want to note that for the record. That case came in, I think, about 6 o'clock, but sometimes that happens. So now, in terms of another big change that I felt that we made, just going back to the number of renters and occupants that would be allowed, because many spoke to the fact that they did not like the fact that we were limiting to 6 people. We did make the change. We had 6 people or 2 people per bedroom or sleeping room, and whichever was less. We did take the 6 out, that limit out, and now have two persons per bedroom. But I just want to note too that we've eliminated children under 12 being counted. So they're not going to be considered a renter or occupant. I want to focus people on that too. I think that is another important change that was made. I talked about the letting of rooms, again, a single room, sleeping room specifically, so it wouldn't be something that had, any cooking capabilities and so forth, and a single family residential dwelling being an exemption here as well, with that change to short-term residential rental and rental unit definition. In terms, somebody asked about this, sleeping room. The question was asked, what does the building code require as far as square footage for a sleeping room? It is 70 square feet. You do have in your ordinances, and I believe that it was Mr. Fritz, if you'll recall, perhaps his last submission to you, he does quote another section of your ordinances. And that language that was added, and it was discussed with both your zoning enforcement official and your building official, but the sentence that was added to the sleeping room definition of every room occupied for sleeping purposes by one renter or occupant shall contain at least 70 square feet of usable floor area, and every room occupied for sleeping purposes by more than one renter or occupant shall contain at least 50 additional square feet of usable floor area for each additional renter or occupant thereof. That's directly from that ordinance. So I just want to point that out. And then, this was sort of a tying up. It occurred to me in terms of section 10-117 on the prohibitions on short-term residential use, that we should point out that accessory dwelling units and long-term rentals of 31 days or more are not permitted on the same property as a short-term residential rental. And there is a section in your newly adopted accessory dwelling unit zoning regulation that section 50.4.6 of the zoning regulations, that accessory dwelling units shall not be used as a short-term residential rental. So I just want to point that out. I'm going to make a statement, and Mr. Boudreau is here, and he's seen it himself, but there is a document, a long-standing document that's been around a long time, that says that in-law apartments are not allowed, and so forth. And we get this back and forth about that issue. If you're not familiar with what the accessory dwelling unit use is now under the zoning regulations, check it out, because it may assist some people in certain circumstances. Because I don't think we've gotten many applications as of yet, Mr. Boudreau, I believe under 12, correct? 3, he's showing me 3 fingers. So do check that out, because that was passed to assist people again in certain circumstances. Now, in terms of the permit application requirements and process, what you see new here, again, is written confirmation from the building official, zoning enforcement official, health district, sanitary, regarding the number of available sleeping rooms. We're not just going to go by, and I know you've seen ordinances that say we're going to look at the assessor's records. The problem with doing that is that assessors, when they do reval, and they hire a company to go out and do reval for you, what they're doing is they're looking to tax improvements. That does not mean that the sleeping rooms that you have are approved through zoning. We see, of course, as everybody will understand, sometimes people try to convert single-family dwellings into multi-family dwellings, 2 families, 3 families, you cannot just go by the tax assessor's records. You need to be checking zoning, you need to be checking building, and make sure that they have the appropriate sign-offs, and then we always have to think about utilities. We also have, and this was asked by your tax collector to add, also in that section, written confirmation on page 4, written confirmation from the town tax collector that the property is current on all tax obligations. Did have a question about that. I think some of you may have seen, there is in Permit Link currently sign off by the tax collector. That's fine, that digital sign off. It's just that it can't be verbal. We want to have a record that we've got confirmation from the tax collector that there is no outstanding obligation due. And then concurrent with that, 10-121, we've got in the event that there is a delinquency, and that is legally defined, that there is a delinquency on any tax obligation due to the town, that the short-term residential rental permit shall be revoked. So the 3 strikes, look, if you want to do that, that's fine, but what you have in here is that, you do have that if there's a violation, the permit can be revoked. There's certain appeal periods in certain instances, not in others, so, take a close look at that again. Is that something that you'd like to see changed? Another big thing, again, yes, we did go back to what we had for quite a period of time of, no more than 1 rental per 7-day period. That had switched on the last writing to, a minimum rental of 7 days. So we went back to that. It seems to be something, it seems that everybody agrees with. We haven't heard a lot of disagreement about that, including from council that is representing the proponents of the use. So as far as the cost, okay, and I haven't submitted for you. I talked to people in state, I talked to people out of state, sort of those locations that everybody's familiar that have been engaged in this use for a long period of time. So people that are using the major vendors, again, I talked about this last time, that ID and track, properties that are engaged in the use, and there's, levels of service that those vendors can provide. They can go so far as actually being engaged in determining whether or not there's ordinance compliance, so with all the provisions of your ordinance. So you're going to make a decision if you adopt this, which I don't know that you're going to. If you adopt it, then what's going to happen is we're going to actually get bids from those folks. We're going to let the vendors know, we're going to take in bids, we're going to go through the bidding process on that, and you'll make your selection based upon, what information you receive. But, certainly I think that part of the bidding process should be, having them bid those various levels of service. The hotline question about, well, what do we do if, to vet to make sure that, people are being honest in the complaints that they make. Well, at the end of the day, if you're going to be pursued about something from an enforcement perspective, and I mean literally pursued all the way, then somebody's going to have to attest under oath, whether it's in writing or on a stand before a judge, okay, if a problem continues and we feel that we need to bring an injunction action. And that's not a threat at all. That's just explaining to you what the process would be. So if something got escalated, they would have to formally attest. So, I understand more than you know what you're saying, because I've been doing enforcement for 27 years. And it does happen that people don't get along with their neighbors, and they make up things and they do things they shouldn't do. And I think, know that your officials, they have good instincts about that stuff. They do. Okay? What else do I say? I think that's it. The other thing I think to consider is effective date. We now have it at May 15th. You may want to extend that, because, we do have some things to figure out. And I did, one last thing on enforcement. One thing that really needs to be considered in terms of the housing code piece, I think it probably, so as not to burden, and I talked a little bit with Attorney Hurst about this, and Mike, we don't want to be overburdening your building official, your health district, so on. It may make sense we've got it, and this is part of the reason about the fee too that I considered. We are very likely going to need at least part-time support on initially getting this up and running from an outside official. So and they get paid hourly. When you use an outside building official, this is every town. Just make that very clear. This is East Haven. You pay usually between $50 and $55 an hour to that outside official to assist with inspections and reviews of plans and whatever needs to be done. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Capola. So I think we'll bring it back to the council. We'll do opposite of what we did last time. We'll start with Councilman Bamonte and make our way back around this way.
We've heard both sides tonight, so I'll take that into consideration. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's same as the last meeting. Basically, again, we have half the residents in favor and half against. Once again, we need to revisit and take a look at the ordinance, as Attorney Capola said, and we'll go from there.
Nothing different from last time, but, you know, the one comment where it's like a good compromise when everybody's not happy is kind of where we're at this point, so that's it for me.
I think if we're gonna take it to vote tonight, I would like to extend the effective date, maybe just take that into consideration.
You know?
I think I'm just torn on the primary residence part. Yeah. Sorry, I'm torn on the primary residence part. That's the part that I was stuck on. But I agree, we need to, nothing's changed. My views haven't changed since last week, or last meeting.
Okay, thank you. I just think, as town council members, not only do we have to look out for the 80 or so people in this room, we have to look out after the other 28 or 29,000 residents of the town. I do believe there will be a liability problem if we start permitting these properties. I know someone had mentioned that we could fight the lawsuit, and it's not necessarily whether we win or lose, it's what it's cost to fight that lawsuit. And that's my concern. As far as nuisance complaints, there's ordinances on the book for that. Maybe there's a way we can make sure that those ordinances get followed up on. With that being said, my understanding with the state of Connecticut is that our proposed HB 7238, it's a bill mandating that the towns, they're going to try to license these properties. And that was as of March 20th, and they want to do it within this year. So that's HB 7238, if anybody want to look that up. And then the second problem I have with the proliferation of short-term rentals sometimes has a very negative impact on affordable housing. Someone had mentioned that tonight. You can't buy a house, you can't rent a house, it's just not affordable. And it's a well-known fact, for the Harvard Business Review and many other editorials that I read, that is a direct impact on the housing market. And I've been in real estate for 33 years. There's no doubt in my mind, but you do your own research on that. So I have those two concerns. And my thought would be that if the state is going to, they may not push this bill through, but if they do, it may change the effect of the whole ordinance that we have. Why can't we just see what happens and see what they decide? Because my understanding is they want to license these properties and let them be liable at that point. So just my thought, my 2 cents.
Thank you, Paul.
The only thing I'll say is I have half the room saying that they keep up their properties, there's no problems, they vet their renters, and then I have the other half of the room that says there's trash and partying, and it's like, who do you believe? Maybe I will come take up residence and come visit you guys for a while.
270 Cozy.
I gotta bring the dogs though, is that okay?
Let's keep on track.
So, yeah, primary residence is a problem, but I'm going to go with what everyone thinks is right to do for our town and for our residents. Hello?
A lot of points that Councilman Thompson brought up, makes a lot of good points. But also I want to, Attorney Capola brought up a good point when she said, disclosure about this upcoming legal thing that she was talking about. I think we need to really look at that. That's important. One thing we don't need is any more lawsuits in this town. However, we need to take care of our residents. We need to come up with a rational plan. I think there's a lot of good things in this ordinance. I'm a little concerned about the primary residence part. I think everybody in this room agrees we need to have some type of regulation on this. I like the fact we talked about maybe doing some type of, as Councilman Janetti said, pushing out that date, start date. And I think Councilman Centino had spoken to that earlier. So I think there's a few things we need to look at. But if we're going to vote on it tonight, that's where I'm at. So I'll let Chairman Decker go.
Go ahead, Joe, you go.
In my opinion on this thing, I think we should come to a vote tonight. It's been long enough, but if I put it out to vote, the motion I'm going to make is that the primary residence comes out. And that's what I stand on, Let's get the ball rolling, let's get it started. primary residency out, gonna hurt a lot of people.
You always put it back.
Yeah, could always put it back. That's my stand on it.
Sue?
I agree with you,
Just give her a mic.
I agree, Joe. I agree with
Pass this down.
something. Always go back. It's not gonna be, you know, we're gonna, that's all we have nothing else. You all need to have something to start with. Look, I'm a summer girl. Summer's around the corner. You guys have to know what's gonna be going on, what you're gonna do. So, I don't understand why, not that I don't understand, but I really feel that we just need to start and see how it works out and make a change. That's all, you know? And I'm sorry that you are going through this for a long time, but we want to make it right for you.
Thank you.
Rich Esposito, who's the vice chair of the Board of Finance in this town, asked me to read a letter that he wrote for the last meeting that didn't get read. So I'm going to read that now. Dear members, short-term rentals have long operated without sufficient oversight, largely due to their rapid rise in economic innovation. While each municipality is unique, the state has rightly placed the responsibility for regulation on local governments. Regardless of the specifics of the ordinance, it's clear that STRs require governance to ensure stability. Lack of regulation creates uncertainty, which can disrupt financial markets, especially in real estate investment. Our shoreline is a valuable and unique asset. Both residents already face significant uncertainties such as volatile flooding from changing weather patterns and ongoing disruption from tweed expansion. STRs add another layer of uncertainty that we can address. We have the opportunity to provide clarity and certainty to our residents by establishing regulations for STRs. Additionally, as we develop these ordinances, we can create a new revenue stream through permits and fines for non-compliance. Your thoughtful consideration is appreciated. Warm regards, Rich Esposito, 56 Morgan Avenue, East Haven. That's what Rich thinks. Here's what I think. Maybe more than water. For me, this is the singly most important issue that has come to us in the time that I've been on this town council. We are being asked to decide the best way to look after our constituents' best interests. When I went knocking on doors asking for votes to be elected to this body, it was to introduce myself and to promise that I wanted to be elected to continue to work for assuring good quality of life. In our neighborhoods, the quality of life is not what it used to be. You all remember the phrase quality of life? That's what we're here for. Quality of life in East Haven, in general, has been improving over the last 5 years, you have to admit, except in the most precious areas of our town, the corners of our streets, the houses across from yours, the street at the end of the street on the end of the beach, the house up on South Dale in Foxen. Our neighborhoods have been invaded by businesses. Hotels are popping up everywhere in clusters and places that used to be the places we grew up in, where our grandparents lived, where we spend our summers. Now there are strangers coming and going every few days, people we know nothing about, people having parties, weddings every weekend, trespassing in other properties, leaving their trash for others and other things everywhere but where it's supposed to be. And where are the investors who are responsible for these businesses? Nowhere to be found. Some as far away as Texas and New Jersey. Do we ever see these investors who are responsible? Yes, we see them when the talk about regulating the businesses starts to come up again. We see them come here to talk to us about the retirement homes in East Haven. They love East Haven, but they live in other towns. Towns where the STR rules, regulations, or ordinances are much tougher, maybe even banned altogether. Yes, banned, like in the state of California, banned. We have made many concessions from where we started with our ordinance. I do not agree with most of these concessions. I believe the fees are far too little. I believe we should not allow events to take place in STRs at all. I am most interested in the quality of life for the people in our neighborhoods, the people who elected us, who are coming to us now for our help to improve their quality of life, to return it to what it was before the mass takeover by these investors. I do like the one rental per 7-day stretch. That's a really good concession. The investors who do not live here, who are not the primary resident in their neighborhoods, are not the ones taking pride in our town, either financially, like patronizing the dog groomer or the nail salon, nor are they their time, like volunteering at the schools, the civic organizations like Rotary or Chamber of Commerce, nor the local government boards or commissions. No, they are investors only, making money on our streets and neighborhoods by bringing their hotel business right in and right next door to any of us. Finally, we are not saying that these people can't make money from their investments. They can rent them. They can do academic rentals. They can rent by the month to the nurses who are here on 6-week stays, to the students who need housing over the winter. Nobody's saying you can't rent your property. You just can't rent it every week. Attorney Klein stated that this would hurt the economy by adding primary residence. No, it won't, because you can rent it to anybody you want to rent it to, just not by the week. And the person who says, we need to have a discussion about, all these, what's involved in this ordinance. But we've been discussing this for 3 years. Some other person said that no town, there has been no town disruption by any of his renters. Well, that's not true, because one time a fire department had to come to your house because your STR renter left a gas grill on. The fire department had to come. So no, you can't tell me that. The fire department gets involved, the police department gets involved. There may not be written reports, but they're out there. You want written reports? We have them. We town council members have lots of written reports. People emailing us and calling us and texting us. We have the written reports. I think that's all I want to say.
Yeah. Answer.
No,
Just use the microphone, Stacey, here. And then bring it back as I need it.
I do agree with 99.99% of what she said and what Attorney Coppola has redone and reworked. I think it should be as she stated. And like we said, we could look back 6 months from now, 8 months from now. So to just keep removing things just pushes us forward. I think they've done a great job. And I'm thankful that you did all the hard work.
Thank
you. I'm actually quite happy with the ordinance. I am for the primary residence. And I think I agree with Attorney Coppola. We just should look at the events and that part. I don't think renters need to be having events like that to bring all those people to property that's not theirs. But otherwise, I'm pretty good with it.
Everybody know already, I say no. I'm not happy with this. I think we need more time. I think everybody, deserves fair share of what we're doing. And I don't like to, tell the people he can make money in his house, some people struggle. I checked it on Google the other day, and we got 27,000 people in this town, and residents in this town, and only focus on one corner. Some people struggle right now. Some people, everything is so high, food, all the same thing, you know, and people struggle, people don't have money for pay taxes. You know, people have to also something for make money. I understand that, you know, I don't be like parties, nothing like that, but nobody's perfect, you know. He got problems, they got problems, but I think that we have to focus in everything, you know, the whole town, not only one corner, not only the beach, not the big houses. We have to take a look at it, you know, Main Street, we have to look at, you know, no High Street, small houses, people don't have, you know, that much money coming in, you know, and try to survive. And I think as if we do this, and just take, you know, the $2 or $3 a make or pay, you know, the bills, you know, we go lose the houses. You know, that's my opinion, and we vote today, I say no. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to give the floor back to Attorney Capola. She's going to speak about House Bill 0238, which was brought up by Councilman Thompson.
So the title of that House bill, and it did go to public hearing actually in March last month, is an act establishing a state short-term rental registry and authorizing an optional municipal supplemental tax on short-term rentals. If you look at, and I'll just read paragraph B because I think it kind of gives essentially what it's about. Each short-term rental operator that lists or advertises short-term rental located in a state, and each owner of a short-term rental located in a state who lists or advertises such rental solely through means other than a short-term rental facilitator shall register each short-term rental property annually with the Department of Revenue Services in a manner prescribed by the Commissioner. I'm just paraphrasing at this point, and it goes on, each such operator owner that lists or advertises prior to January 1st, 2026 shall register with the department not later than January 1st, 2026. And on or after January 1st, 2026, no such operator owner shall list or advertise a short-term rental prior to registering such short-term rental property with the department. And then it has a provision that provides for municipal option in terms of taxing. So further down, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but it has nothing to do with regulating the operation and use of a short-term rental property. There was a statute that was passed last year. I think the town had an ability to establish an ordinance pursuant to Municipal Powers Act 7-148, the general statutes anyway, but there was a provision added last year, and I spoke about this multiple times at 7-148QQ that provides authority for passage of an ordinance by a legislative body of the town, and an ordinance that regulates, again, the operation and use of short-term rental properties. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a motion to close public hearing number one and forward it to the full council. Second? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none.
The Hearing Committee of East Haven Town Council recommends to the full council adoption of the aforementioned ordinance.
Okay. We're going to move right into our regular town council meeting. Calling the meeting to order at 8:48. May I have a roll call, please?
Ashley Lesko. Here. Mariano Santiago.
Here.
Ann Pennington. Here. Joseph Deco.
Here.
Karen Martin. Here. Joseph Santino.
Here.
Mary Ann Caesar. Here. Louis Pacelli.
Here.
Paul Thompson.
Here.
Michael Genetti.
Here.
Tina Hedley.
Here.
Drew Stacy. Here. Albert Milano.
Here.
Guy Monte.
Here.
Joseph Kikisik.
Here.
15 present, quorum.
Thank you. Item number one, approval of minutes.
Make a motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Any abstentions? Item two, correspondence.
Everything went to.
Yeah, everything's been dispersed that we received, so. Okay, item three, subcommittee reports, education, library, and school building. Just talk loud.
With regard to somewhat of education, I would just like to congratulate not only the East Haven High School hockey team for winning
Division II state championship. First one since 1998, so I'm very happy for the boys. But also our East Haven varsity cheerleaders, they came in 7th in the state. It's almost the first time ever. That's really all I have.
Thank you. Public health, safety, and welfare? Finance? I think we're gonna hear about what finance has been up to, and we all know that it's budget season, so get ready for Wednesday night, or Thursday night, tomorrow, Wednesday. Public service, Parks and Rec? Urban renewal housing? And blight.
Yeah, just a few things on blight. There were 3 properties referred to legal this month. Both Rite Aid properties remain empty and are in reasonable condition, so there's nothing negative to report there. And several properties have been issued fines and are accruing a $100 a day penalty since all parties are refusing to communicate with the town. But that's about it for blight.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for your report as well in our email. Item number 4.
Item number 4, to consider and act upon the following transfer approved by the Board of Finance and referred to the Town Council for approval. 2, account 100456661-53694, other contractual services, $3,700. Account 100456661-53694, other contractual services, $30,000. Total $33,700 from account 100456661-59697, bus transportation $3,700. Account 100456661-5115, part-time wages $30,000, total $33,700.
I'd like to just, before we get into discussion, have a motion in a second, and then Liz will explain what this is. So move second.
Second.
Okay, so I'm asking for the budget transfer for providing 2 brand new courts to be added to the beach area, across from the beach house and off to the side of the pavilion. With the 2 new courts, we're able to get in 11 new teams that have been on a wait list for the past few years. Of the 11 new teams, there are 7 on a team. They're all East Haven residents, so 77 new residents that have been waiting for this. We can then open to the public after getting all the wait lists in, and then we can have 10 more spots available, which I think will fill rapidly. With the new courts, we'll be able to get done earlier. We're down there quite late sometimes. Some of the games go longer. We're down 10:30, 11 o'clock, so we'll get it done earlier with the 2 slots. We'll be able to bring in more revenue. We can have tournaments, weekend tournaments, Saturdays, Sundays, some night tournaments that people have been asking for. We can also offer free lessons for children, which I'd like to introduce them to the game. When we do our free programs in the summer, games on the beach, so that'll be added in there. When I came to the director 3 years ago, we had 16 teams, 2 nights, and over 3 years, we've increased to 40 teams. And now with the 2 new time slots and the new courts, we can have 64 teams, which I think will fill up quite rapidly. So that's why I'm asking you to have the support.
Liz, I just have a couple of questions,
Sure.
if you don't mind. So obviously, we're seeing that we're getting some money, a big amount of this money is from part-time wages. Could you just explain to the council why there's that much money in that account?
So that part-time wages and the other account that it's coming to, that is from a position that we did not fill, but it's still there. That's Christina's position that was there as the secretary. So that position, the money stays in there because eventually the way we're moving at a fast pace with our programs, we may end up needing that position.
So that, just so everybody's clear, that's extra money that was in this year's budget that is unused, obviously, but hopefully in the future we'll use it.
We never really touch it, but we just up for something good, and that's why that's there. And also, the amount for 33, the hard true that goes on there is very expensive. So each year we need to, what we call sprinkle it a little bit. So that's why we asked for a little bit extra than the 31,000, another couple thousand. So we can get the hard true on the old courts and then be able to sprinkle at the end of next year for the new courts.
And just so everybody's clear, this did go out to bid and it was awarded. So, any questions from the council? But not started, of course.
Yes.
Any questions from the council? Any public questions, comments? Okay, hearing none, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Ashley Lesko?
Yes.
Mariano Santiago?
Yes.
Ann Pennington? Yes. Joseph Deco?
Yes.
Karen Martin? Yes. Joseph Santino?
Yes.
Mary Ann Caesar? Yes. Louis Pacelli?
Yes.
Paul Thompson?
Yes.
Michael Genetti?
Yes.
Tina Hedley?
Yes.
Susan Stacy?
Yes.
Albert Milano?
Yes.
Guy Lonte?
Yes.
Joseph Casey?
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you so much. Congratulations. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Item number 5.
To consider and act upon setting a public hearing date for an ordinance entitled, an ordinance providing tax relief to spouses of first responders and state police who reside in the town of East Haven that have died in the line of duty.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I should have said any discussion. I know we talked about it a lot in the past meeting, but, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Go ahead.
Could we add on to the agenda the public hearing removal, instead of public hearings, so we don't have to wait 2 more months?
Is for number 6? Yeah, we can certainly do
Well,
that.
at the end, yeah.
Yeah. So, that, item number 5 will be for May 6th, which is our next meeting, okay? Item 6, we're gonna administratively take off. However, I want to add item 6.1, which will be to consider an act to set a public hearing for such on May 6th. Okay, so can I have a motion to add 6.1? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Hearing none, any abstentions? Yeah. So now we're going to make a motion on 6.1 to add that public hearing, schedule the public hearing for May 6th.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Any abstentions? Okay, item number 7.
Item number 7, to consider and act upon an ordinance entitled, an ordinance related to the short-term rentals.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, I inadvertently skipped myself in the public hearing portion, and I apologize for that, but that was not intentional. I just wanted to be very clear that everything that I've said in the past public hearings still stands. We are elected, I am elected to take care of the residents of this town, and that's what I will continue to do. If we have to, I am in favor of this ordinance as it's written. I commend the attorneys like everyone else did. Everybody put a ton of work into this. Vice Chair Pacelli and I put 100 hours of work into it ourselves. So I appreciate everyone's work. We did hear what people have said. I mean, I've had conversations with a lot of you, off the record, even though I was told not to. I went against Leslie's advice and did it anyway. So I appreciate what everybody has said, on both sides of this argument. But I will say that the only thing that I am interested in adjusting, and this is, I'm going to make the recommendation now, is the time frame. Like Councilman Genetti said, and Councilman Santino and I spoke. We spoke to a lot of people today about that. I just think the date is a little bit too strict. I think we need to push it out. I'd like to align it with this state bill, which is January 1st of 26. So that will get, I know it's not everybody's favorite thing, but it is what it is. I think we have to give time for us to put this software out to bid. I think we need to align some staff, but I do think we need to enact this ordinance. And like many of us have said in the past, we could always make adjustments to it. So,
Mr. Chairman,
go ahead.
I'd just like you to make a motion without the residential part.
So the motion's been made. If Lou, you made the motion. So if there's a motion on the table already for the ordinance as written. So if Lou would like to change his motion, that's on him. But the motion is as it stands.
So he can make the motion to remove the residential part.
Change it.
He could. I mean, if that's something.
I make the motion to change it.
Do I have a second?
Second.
To move to amend it?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, can we do a show of hands, please, so I could?
What is this for? I'm sorry.
This is the amendment to remove, it's the amendment to remove the primary residency clause.
Yes.
And to adjust the date as well, Mr. Chair?
And to adjust the date.
Yeah, to adjust the date.
Well, I think, wait, hold on. We have two separate issues here, and I think, to be fair, I think we need to do them separately.
Okay.
All right, so the Vice Chair Pacelli has made the motion, amended his motion to remove the primary residence clause, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay,
I'll second
he
it.
seconded it. Let's do a show of hands of who is in favor of removing the primary residence. A roll call vote? Okay, roll call vote.
Ashley Lesko? Mariano Santiago?
He said no.
Don't remove it.
Don't remove it, that's what he said, no, yes.
Ann Pennington?
No.
Joseph Decker?
No.
Karen Martin?
No.
Joseph Santino?
Yes.
Mary Ann Caesar?
No.
Lou Pacelli?
Yes.
Paul Thompson?
No.
No. Michael Janetti?
No.
Tina Hadley?
Yes.
Sue Stacy?
No.
Albert Bolano?
No.
Guy Lamonte?
Yes.
Joseph Kikiseki?
No.
Motion failed.
Motion failed. Okay, so the next item would be to make the effective date January 1st, 2026.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote again, please.
Ashley Lesko?
Yes.
It's just moving the effective date up.
Mariano Santiago? Ann Pennington?
Yes.
Joseph Decker?
Yes.
Karen Martin?
Yes.
Did you say yes?
Yes.
Joseph Santino?
Yes.
Mary Ann Caesar?
Yes.
Louis Pacelli?
Yes.
Paul Thompson?
Yes.
Michael Janetti?
Yes.
Tina Hadley?
Yes.
Sue Stacy?
Yes.
Albert Bolano?
Yes.
Guy Lamonte?
Yes.
Joseph Kikiseki?
Yes.
All in favor?
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to ask for a motion to vote on the ordinance as presented with the amended change of the effective date
So
to
moved.
January 1st, 2026.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
May I have a roll call?
Ashley Lesko?
Yes.
Mariano Santiago?
No.
Ann Pennington?
Yes.
Joseph Decker?
Yes.
Karen Martin?
Yes.
Joseph Santino?
No.
Mary Ann Caesar?
Yes.
Louis Pacelli?
Yes.
Paul Thompson?
No.
Michael Janetti?
Yes.
Tina Hadley?
Yes.
Sue Stacy?
Yes.
Albert Bolano?
Yes.
Guy Lamonte?
No.
Joseph Kikiseki?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. I don't think this is not going to go away. I'm sure there's going to be some amendments, but I look forward to that. Thank you all for coming. May I have a motion to adjourn? It is 9:03. Thank you so much.